attendees have access to ask questions, or do they have to type them in? Leo?
Well, good afternoon, folks. We're going to start our webinar right now. Tom is very anxious to get going, and I'm looking forward to hearing about his sprinklers. But in the meantime, we're going to do our Mailers Hub webinar today involving the Mailers Scorecard. And as you can tell, our speaker today is Tom Glassman. Tom is a recognized postal and mailing operations expert. In case you can't tell, he's originally from the Boston area as a graduate of Babson College. He began his career operating Cheshire labeling equipment inserters and advanced from there to managing larger mail operations. He moved to Dallas in 2007 as Vice President of Operations for Tabs Direct. And at Tabs, he contributed to a team that helped deliver the 2010 census material on time with the use of IMB and drop shipments first class. He later became Director of Service and Postal Affairs for NPI, and Tom currently is involved with MTAC, various MTAC groups. He's one of Mailers Hub's representatives on MTAC, and he's a regular presenter on the Postal Forum and in many industry publications. He holds a Mailtease Design Consultant certification from MSMA and a Mail Design Professional certification from the Postal Service, and is a Six Sigma Lean Black Belt professional, along with being an active provider of help for the Fort Myers PCC. When he's not busy on postal stuff, he's a certified diver and pursues his hobby of underwater photography, as well as being the second most active tweeter in the country. So with all that in mind, I'd like to introduce Tom Glassman to give us today's presentation. Tom?
Good afternoon, everyone. Michelle, can you advance the slides? Before I get started, I wanted to speak to the group, the attendees on Leo's last newsletter. Please pay attention to the proposed changes in operations. So recently, as of last week, I had election mail coming to my house. It's the primary ballot. Ballot showed up in my informed delivery campaign on Monday. Now, let's back up. These pictures are taken during the 918 operation code doing the final sort for the carrier. So the operations clock says that the machines are swept at 7 a.m. and that mail is delivered to the DDUs. So now, with the new cost-saving measures, the carriers are going out, delivering mail before the sorted mail from that day is being sent to that DDU. The reason why I'm bringing this up, there's been a commitment not to delay election mail, and my election mail was delayed. So recently, if you look in the OIG findings, they talk about the different, the network not being optimized, management looking and prioritizing high quality, on-time service, but the majority of the service performance goals are not being met, and increased costs along with inefficiencies. So I understand we need to cut costs, but do you have to delay the mail, especially election mail, this time of year? So sorry, that's my rant. I took a different approach. We've been on calls, webinars over the years, talking about the scorecard. One of the things, for those of you who don't know, I'm currently a director over at RICO. I've got program services under managed services. I manage a group that we go in and we do what's called midterm audits. We evaluate how we're doing. And we don't report to the customer. We grade and report to our operations people on how they're doing. So we audit postage, we audit pre-sorts, we audit the operations and give them feedback. And one of the things I found was there appeared to be a lot of value on teaching the customer how to read the scorecard. So the slide presentation that I'm going to provide today, along with backup help from Michael Patterson, myself and Michael have worked together and helped a lot of the reporting in the scorecard and the exporting. We've provided feedback to the Postal One team, Charles Brown and BMS and others, especially, I don't know if you've noticed, if you do export, the recent changes, and actually Jen Bruno over at Wyland caught some issues with the export. So there's a group of us that give a lot of feedback to the post office. So next slide, please. I want to take a different look, a different approach at understanding the tool, understanding that it could provide you in a competitive nature, in a competitive business, a value-added service to your customer. It also offers an opportunity, because don't forget, not only are they looking at what you mailed, but when you work with them, you can see their total mail if they're using other vendors. So it provides you an edge of what's going out and explaining to the customer how that mail is doing and how it's graded. So one of my big lines when we talk to people, I explain looking at the scorecard is an art, not a science. There are some things that translate point for point, but for instance, if you've got a sorting machine there and you're doing commingling and you've got nesting errors, not a huge quantity, that's to be expected with the sorters. So I completely dismiss those, or I call them minor errors. So it's more of an art of understanding the things you should look at and the things to work with the customer on. The other thing is I've structured the slides. Michelle has left it as a handout so that you could rebrand them and then walk your customer through logging in and where to find the scorecard. Again, this only works as a value-added service if you sit with the customer on a monthly basis. You're in front of them to show your value and help them interpret what they're looking at. I also have a lot of value-added points in here, not to bore you, but there's a thing called proof of presentment. If you're mailing for insurance companies, I wanted to let you know what was going on as far as what states allow that, and another reason why you want to stay in front of the customer. It's also bringing tidbits, news, and information to those customers. So moving right along, Michelle, next slide, please. So I spoke about before exporting. Why do we export? Because the left screen is a moment in time. You're looking at one day. You can't look at what is happening from day to day by just going in and looking at the scorecard. Michael Patterson has done a wonderful job adding conditional formatting to his scorecard. So if he hits a specific percentage, it becomes colored. So originally, if I hit half a threshold, we would turn yellow. If I hit 3/4 of a threshold, we would go orange. And if I hit a threshold, I would turn red. Again, he's taken it to the next level. He's done a good job. But the point here is exporting out and keeping that day-to-day activity allows you to manage your business, or allows your customer to view what's going on with that business. They can see the percentage of scans go up when your mailings are entered. And then as the mailing drops off, again, the daily percentage or daily volume stays at that level. But again, if you hit another facility with a drop shipment, based on the e-docs, that total percentage will start to rise back up again based on that day's mail. So again, exporting as opposed to looking at it day to day. Next slide, Michelle, please. The scorecard's got tons of data points. Michael Patterson, how many lines is the export up to now with the newest version of what was just added? Michael?
I'm sorry, Tom. I had my phone muted.
The scorecard was just recently changed within the past month. on the export. How many lines of data are we now down to?
I believe it's 96. Maybe more than that. I'm sorry. Yeah.
All right.
That's what it is.
All right. So tons of data. Again, don't look at it as a punishment, but look at it as a methodology for process improvement. So if you're looking at trade issues, you may want to ignore it, but monitor. COA, the COA change of address issue, is there something or a business opportunity? The light bulb needs to go off. Where can I show value to my customer? How can I make my mail or printing business more valuable to the customer? We're going to talk about that a few slides in. E-induction, when I handed off my mailing to the logistics company, did it make it to the right facility? Nesting errors. In this scorecard, one of the facilities was actually missorting the mail. So at that point, management may want to go in and retrain. In this particular facility, they were pre-trained, and if they grabbed the wrong stack of trays, it put the trays out of order. So now the pieces are nested wrongly into the trays. And then I also made the notation, the scan rates, if you look at them, were running really good at 100, 99, 98, and then one facility is at 36%. What's causing that? Again, discussion for later. Michelle, next slide, please.
Hey, Tom, if I can break in for just a second, I'm wondering if we have folks on the line who may need to know a little bit more of the background, like how do I find my scorecard, who in my organization can have access to it, how many of us can have access to it, who should have access to it.
So, Leo, if you can just hold on for another slide or two, I'm going to show people. Again, I developed the slides to be a training so that our customers, Mailers Hub's clients, could take these slides and walk the customer through how to log in and where to go. So if you just give me another couple of slides, we'll talk about that. So how can I show my client? How can I show my client more value and insight? What differentiates me as a printer or as an MSP from the other printers? Can I teach my customers, the ultimate mailer, how to read the scorecard? It builds trust. So I did this with a Midwest bank. We mail approximately 2.5 million pieces a month for this bank. And I took the VP of marketing, who also managed all of the mailing relationships, and I showed her how to log in. Every month we reviewed it, and we actually, another slide later in the deck, we made some process improvements around NCOA, and it was a dramatic change. And for a bank, that's huge. We actually increased deliverability of the marketing pieces and the statement mail. So if you log into USPS.com, next slide, please. Down the very bottom, you're looking for the business customer gateway. It's easier if you bookmark it, so that way you can go right into the gateway. Next slide, please. And then it asks you for your ID and password, or do you need an account? So if you're going to your customer, someone has to be the admin at your customer's business. So it's typically a VP of marketing. In a lot of cases, I'm teaching someone from the finance department, because not only do they own the ownership of the gateway, but they also hold the logins and information for EPS so that the permits can be paid for. So who do you deal with at the business, and are they far enough up the ladder to be the ultimate administrator? So here you would create the account for that person. Next slide, please. And then you're getting the welcome screen. You would typically go to in the bottom left where it says manage account. Next slide, please. Now here, if your customer is using other vendors, I have never found, I shouldn't say never. So for instance, up at the bank was utilizing 8 vendors. All 8 vendors had 8 different CRIDs. A business is only supposed to have 1 CRID. The problem was when the accounts were set up, if they spelled something differently or they used a different building, the CRIDs would end up all being different. So it took us about a month and a half to get responses back from all the companies, find all the CRIDs, and then add the location. So when you click add the location, you would then enter in the CRID, and then the following screens are what services you want under that CRID. Next slide, please. And this is where, depending on the vendors and what CRID they're using, you would add, and then this screen goes back into what services. Offhand, if the person's the first one logged in, they'll be the BSA, they'll be the administrator for the account, and end up just checking all the boxes. So that way they have full control of the account within that business. Next slide, please. So once you have the account set up, once you've associated the CRIDs from all the vendors, or if you're the only vendor, once you've added the CRID you're using for that business, you would go in and access the scorecard. If at any time when you're setting the account up and you cannot get into the scorecard and it says you're not authorized, an email has to go to Postal One saying who you are, you're set up as the admin for the CRID, and you would like access to the scorecard. I would say 50% of the time it works going right into the scorecard, and the other 50% of the time we've got to send an email to Postal One to have them arrange for access. So when we log in, we can go right to the scorecard. Next slide, please. And then please don't forget, you can take these slides, use them for your customers, just rebrand them, and then moving right along, explain to them the difference between the e-doc submitter and the mail owner. Also be aware, if you are an MSP or a printer, that the undocs only show up to the e-doc submitter. Assessments are provided to only the e-doc submitter. So you want to go to the mail owner, mail preparer, and then when you do that, all the vendors that your client is using will show up if you've associated the CRIDs. Leo, any other questions come in? Now's a good time to pause before we...
No, not yet, Tom. One thing I will point out to all the folks who are listening is that the slides, of course, are available to you. They should be able to see the PDF right there on the screen, and that's available to them. And we will be making the recording of today's session available to everyone afterwards as well. So if anybody's trying to take notes frantically, they can get the cramp out of their hand and know that they'll be able to get this information afterwards. Otherwise, I think we're okay to go, Tom.
Okay, and then just as a note, as I'm sure a lot of the people in the audience, if you ask a question or have an issue, I do get back to you, or Leo calls me, and then I end up calling you and walking you through and helping trying to fix the issue or lend some guidance on where to look to fix an issue. So in this case, if you're dealing with your customer, you want to go to the mail preparer, mail owner, and then it'll ask you what CRIDs. Next slide, please. What month? We need to talk about this. So for the MSPs that don't know, if you're working with your customer the scorecard cuts off at the 10th of the next month. So for July, the month does not stop collecting data around scan events and ACS and COA until August 10th at midnight. That's when the data is complete. Now, also, recently, last week, I worked with a mailer that submitted a mailing on July 29th, reversed it, on 6/29, reversed it on 7/1, resubmitted it on July 10th, and 60% of the data that was submitted came back as undocumented. Because a lock is a lock, and when the data processed at midnight, those pieces, if they're undocumented, are going to stay undocumented. So it just went through the process of how to defend themselves and not pay for the assessment. Again, what we did was we set up an email string showing when it was paid for, when it was reversed, when it was paid for again. We included from the PDR file all the barcodes to show that they were paid for on the 10th, and that all the pieces that were showing up in the undocumented report. And then please don't forget, when you do a right click on Seamless and you go into the undocumented mail, that undocumented mail is just a sampling. If you want to get the whole file, you've got to go out to IV for the mail tracking data reports. You want the error reports, and you want a one-time query to pull down all the data they have. Again, because what you get on the screen is just going to be a sampling. So
and
again,
Tom, ID is informed visibility.
But IV, yes, informed visibility. The data around all of the errors can be found there. You can either subscribe and have it pushed to you daily, or you can do a one-time query. Leo, did I answer the question?
I believe so.
Okay. So I typically, when I work with my customers, the bank, the large mortgage company, and I've got a utility that I work with, I tell them to go in after the 10th of the month, look for the previous month. Next slide, please. Select the mail owner CRID. Next slide, please. And it will show all of the vendors going across the top and the quantities mailed. So for this particular customer, they're mailing 4 million pieces a month, and they have 4 vendors that it's being processed at. If you use a pre-sort network, so the 2 major networks would be Pitney Bowes and the Royal Alliances, either one, the final submission from the different facilities, so hypothetically you use a pre-sort network, some was processed in Atlanta, some was processed in Cleveland. Each one that processed the mail would show up here as a vendor. So as we can see, the bulk of the mailing is coming out of one facility, and then almost 1/4 of it is coming out of the other facility. Next slide, please. So again, I talk about exporting, being able to see the mail on a daily basis. The king of exporting would be, if you have a question, Michael Patterson. And the vendors, as a reminder, will show up in each column. Next slide, please. we're going to start looking at the art as opposed to the science. So if we look down at move updates, what do you see and what causes it? So of the 4 million pieces going out, there are 16,000 change of address errors, and there are 24,000, my screen's not going right down the bottom, it looks like 24,000 UAA errors. So please don't forget, next slide, that the COAs are forwarded for months 1 to 12 for first class and recycled for marketing mail, and then returned to the customer in months 13 to 18. So again, business opportunity for the MSPs and the printers out there. If you're looking at the customer scorecard and you're seeing that return mail, what can you offer them and how can you become more intertwined with their business so that you're showing value and making it extremely hard for them to move on to someone else. Next slide, please. I also want to let you know before I answer that question, right-clicking of the, if you're in Seamless or in electronic verification, right-clicking will allow for a drill down for a specific area. So if it's the move updates, you can right-click and get a sampling of, is it COA that's causing the issue? Is it UAA that's causing the issue? What I do is I look at what the issues are around the address. If it's address elements are missing, I know that NCOA and address resolution type software will fix it. If its forwarding order is expired, then I'm going to look at a combination of doing an NCOA and a PCOA, a proprietary change of address. Next slide, please. So again, I look at what's causing the issue. On the COAs, how much did we miss by? When was the address filed? I look for runs in the data to look for reasons. So if I'm NCOAing on a regular basis, is that I'm just doing it late and they're getting by? Is it just a timing issue? Again, you want to look for reasons and then implement a business solution that will generate value-added service, revenue, but make you of more value to the customer. So just don't let the errors go by. You want to do some research as to what's causing the problem. Next slide.
Hey, Tom, before I forget here, I did have a question earlier about IV and how folks go about signing up for it.
So you would log into IV. You're going to need your CRID, your MIDS, and you're going to have to answer some questions of where the data is being pushed down to. It has to be an SFTP transfer, so you need a secure server. You're going to do just a query on that particular data. So you can look at almost anything in IV. You can look at your tracking data. All of the error data is in there. I haven't worked with informed delivery lately, but they were going to move the reporting from informed delivery into IV. Michael, anything to add that's been moved into IV?
No, just it's important to sign up for it though, because you can get your tracking information and definitely you can get those undocumented reports emailed to you on a daily basis, so you can stay on top of your problems.
Yeah, and getting the whole undocumented mail, I'm going to be showing you a slide coming up of why it's so important and what I look for in the data. And I know I still haven't answered the question on the COA and the ACS but there is a slide in here, and I'm going to show you the what I did. I'll explain what I did and the value to the customer. So next slide, please. So in the full service, the handling unit, which is a tray, there were tray errors, barcode uniqueness with the containers, barcode uniqueness with the handling units, the piece errors. Here's where I have heartburn. If you're having a few piece errors, especially if you're using commingling equipment, you're fine. Again, they aren't, it's not a big deal. If you're a list mailer and you're having issues, it's going to cause a problem, and you need to follow up why you're getting those issues. Why am I getting uniqueness problems? If I'm jamming on a belt, am I backing up too far and regenerating the same barcode over again and mailing the same pieces? So here's where it's so important. Insurance companies were mailing out a ton of certified mail. Someone finally figured out that the barcode on the mail pieces being unique and having a unique license plate per piece, if I can follow that tracking to delivery and use it as proof of presentment, I can stop wasting, in some companies, the insurance companies, hundreds of thousands of dollars on certified mail. So again, there are 7 states. I believe I added a slide in here naming the states. If I didn't, I will get it to Leo for distribution. Currently, 7 states have actually passed laws that allow the intelligent mail barcode tracking to be used as proof of presentment legally. So next slide, please. And this is what I was talking about. So 3,400 barks being replicated or duplicated within a mailing is a little ridiculous and needs to be followed up on, especially if you're mailing for insurance, any place where the proof of presentment is being used. It's so important to have uniqueness in the mailings. So again, if you're a list mailer, what is causing the duplicate barcodes? Is it in the generation of the piece or within the software that you're pre-sorting with? Just as a note, one of the QC points I make when I'm working with the MSPs that are having undocumented and uniqueness errors, I ask them to look at the mail.dat in the PDR file, or if you have a different way to do it, you can, but start a job log. It'll pay for itself, especially if you're getting an undocumented assessment. A job log, what's the date, what's the job number, what's my starting barcode, what's my ending barcode. And again, the barcode uniqueness is the class of mail, the MID, and the serial number. So the SKID is very important when you're recording these things. Next slide, please. Here you go. This is what I was talking about. So 8 states have passed laws that allow for proof of presentment, meaning they don't need to send the mail certified if you're doing mail tracking using the IMB at a savings of $5 per envelope. For insurance companies, and then when doing a lot of certified mail, this is huge. And again, you need to just stay up on what states have passed the law. This was just the start, and the states were coming on board pretty quick. So keep an eye out for that. And again, a value-added service on behalf of your company that you can offer your customer. Next slide, please. Everything related to the induction, you should monitor how many skids were turned in and did they go to the right place? Was the mail direction file a current file used? Again, you wouldn't get dinged unless the mail is sent to the wrong facility. So you should be looking at misshipped errors. There is a checkbox to either accept misship or reject misship within the mail.dat. Please be aware of that. Next slide, please. Piece scan rate. Again, I got called by a customer that was sending mail to different facilities. And if you look down the scan rate, we've got 2 facilities that were in the 80s. And on letter mail, you should be above 97%. So what's going on with those facilities? Again, it's based on class of mail. If it's first class mail, it's definitely an issue 10 days out. If it's marketing mail, first question I was asked was, what was the drop ship instructions? When did the mail hit the facility? Because technically you could mail in the month and then not go into the facility until the 8th or 9th of the next month, based on how you've timed the deliveries. So again, it's driven by class, it's driven by trucking time, and it's also driven by your instructions to your logistics provider. But something to monitor. Next slide, please. The sampling, again, we've talked about this before. We've gotten away from a job sampling to a census-based reporting system. So the Postal One system on the post office side tells the clerk when to sample and how many things to sample. That sampling data is here. If you're running in the sampling nesting issues, since it's only a sampling, that would cause me heartburn. The weight issues, I typically found if it's occasional, it's the scale wasn't calibrated on the postal side. If it's ongoing, if you're doing bound printed matter and there's different contents, then it could be an issue as far as the sample weight that was loaded up in the mail.dat. But again, art, not science. As long as I don't break or cause postage issues, I'm not too concerned about weight verification. I'd be more concerned about barcode issues and nesting issues within the sampling. Next slide, please.
Tom? Hey, Tom. Oh, go ahead.
Tom, that on the sampling, that's a 3 strikes and you're out. So you have if you go over threshold the first month, you don't get dinged that month. You have 3 months to get it corrected.
Thanks,
it would
Michael.
be the 4th month if you kept. Yeah.
And Tom, we had a question also. What predominantly causes COA errors if you run NCOA on the list?
So the first question is, was it NCOA or NCOA link? So am I using an 18-month file or a 48-month file? Did the move just take effect and I missed it when I ran the NCOA? So again, one of the things I said was do a right click, look at the sampling. Why am I getting those errors? Is it a date thing? So for instance, I run an NCOA today and I plan on mailing on August 1st. And then in between those 9 days, there were 35 COAs created. Now I missed them because I just did the list. So again, I would pick that up from the timing by looking at the errors in the full service, right-clicking the full service. So again, it could be type of file used, 18-month file, 48-month file, or timing of when I did it. Now, the other thing could be is the ability to match the addresses. So it's done through an algorithm, and each company's algorithm is a little different. They all pass a test. And the funny thing, just as a side note, the file we use for NCOA and the file the post office uses for COA the COA, because of the relationship of family and single names, single address moves, the COA will yield a 2 to 3% better hit rate than NCOA. So this problem occurs within even the post office, where the algorithm and the matching is better with one system than it is another. Not by a lot, but if you're looking for a total address hygiene cleansing system, you need to look proactive and reactive, which I still haven't found that slide yet. I'll explain when I get to the slide. So here, again, nesting issues, 358 handling units were put on the wrong skid. So someone jumbled up, if you pre-run your tray tags and you pre-run your skid flags, did someone drop the pile of skid flags and take them out of order? And someone's not checking the tray tags to the skid flags. So we get a training issue. Just because it's not causing you a fine or an assessment doesn't mean the errors should be ignored if you can do process improvement. Because don't forget, you just caused the delay in the mail by putting those trays on the wrong skids. Next slide, please. Undocumented. I just dealt with a company 2 weeks ago that had the assessment. I want to show you one of the things I do to issue an opinion. Can we go to the next slide, please? So I usually bring the, by right-clicking, I bring the file, export it out into Excel, and then I lose all the columns and start looking at the date of the mailing, the day that it's scanned, and the structure of the barcodes. So what I found was, for one customer, all of their residual mail that couldn't be pre-sorted had a barcode on it and was showing up, since they were metering the pieces at 50 cents and had a barcode on it, it would show up as an undoc, because the post office is reading the barcode and it can't be matched back to any e-docs. So my response to that company is either submit an e-doc for your single piece mail, or stop barcoding the letters and all these stupid pieces here will disappear. Next slide, please. I did one for people my age and then people from Michael's age. So if you look at the left, now counting left to right, the first two digits are what I call the optional endorsement. It's the sorts only used for flats. The next three numbers, the 300 is the STID. The next 6 would be the mid, unless it starts with a 9. If the mid starts with a 9, it can be a 9-digit mid. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my sequence number starts at 9, and it's a run. So the last 2 digits are 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. And I look at the date. So every day I could see roughly 150 pieces per day, and I could tell by looking at the data that it was the residual mail from mailings. A, because it was short barcodes, and B, they were showing up every single day in sequential order, which meant they were coming from the same job. So again, look at your data. What is the data telling you? There's a story here that sends you in a direction for solving the undocumented issue. So this was an easy one to fight with Postal. I just showed them the runs of data. I took a picture of the mail coming off the mailing equipment that said single piece mail every day. We've paid for it with a meter, and we're working to take the barcode off the piece. Next slide, please. So Customers database is the lifeblood of the company. If you're seeing an issue in the COA and the UAA, what can you do to help them? Can we go to the next slide? Hopefully that's the one I've been looking for. Nope. Michelle, I'm looking for an Excel sheet with percentages in it. Right there, stop. Yes. Okay, so I put it out of order. So I was working with a Midwest bank, and I started tracking in August the scorecard. I should have cleaned up the left side before I made a slide out of it. But what happened was I'm working with the customer, and they've got 32% COA, 42% COA, 30% COA, 40. I know it's 0.47. And then underneath the UAA. So in November and December, we negotiated with the customer where they would pass 20 million records a month through an NCOA process, and we would give it back to the bank. We go through one of our divisions, has secure servers, bank was comfortable. They worked out how to pass the data cleanly. But I want to show you, look what happened. The first month, we did the NCOA for the bank. We reduced the COA, we got better delivery, and we reduced the UAA. That's that many more customers receiving the material, which is a blend of statements, 2.5 million statements a month. The balance is marketing material. I'm now reaching that many more customers. I show at that point tremendous value as a partner with the bank because I'm increasing their deliverability. You too can do that. As an MSP or a printer, a print service provider, start looking at other services that you can perform to increase your value, and you can charge for it. So this gets a better delivery rate. The bank picks up more customers because, as you can see, I know because Rico's processing 2.5 million of that, and those are statements, that 2 million is marketing material, which means my sales of bank products, loans, car loans, house loans, savings accounts, is going to go up by fixing the database and working with the client to fix the database. Next slide, please. Something to be aware of, I put the formula here. You can get undocumented mail bookended back to you. There's 10 different scenarios. So if the pieces are running and all of a sudden there's 2 unidentified pieces, was it your mail before and after? How many pieces were before and after? There's formulas in there, but you need to understand and look at your error codes when you're looking at the undocumented mail. It could have been arrived from bookending. Just be aware of that. Next slide, please. I did list in here, there's no reason to go back. I did list in there the thresholds and the meanings of the errors, again, for reference. Here's the same thing on the bookending. How many pieces are needed? What's the threshold and the gapping between the pieces and your pieces? Next slide, please. So just as a reminder, my rant, the post office, if you read the last issue that Leo put out, the post office is experimenting with delivery. I can firsthand knowledge tell you, I actually had election mail delayed by a day. It showed up in my informed delivery on a Monday. I did not see it until Tuesday. And historically, up until about 30 days ago, Whatever I saw in informed delivery, I got the next day. So there's built-in delay of the mail that's going out there. You should watch your informed delivery campaigns, monitor that, and monitor your delivery, and provide some feedback. Again, I've written a long message to Leo that he could bring to leadership because I was upset. My election mail got delayed, and we've been promised up to now that Postal would do the best it can. On the scorecard, don't look at it as a fine or an assessment. Look at it as a business in process improvement tool, and think about teaching your customers to show more value. What does it do for you? It allows you in, it gets you more contact with the customer and the ability to see if they have other vendors and how those vendors are doing. It allows you an opportunity to look at the COA and the UAA. Now, quick story. We were sending RICO people out to count UAA and COA mail because we have a return mail program. When they went to send me out to Dearborn, Michigan, I laughed at them. And I'm there, why would I want to sit there and count? If I just bring up the scorecard, I can actually give you an exact amount instead of standing there counting. And don't forget, on the COA, the first 12 months, if there was a change of address, I'm not even seeing that piece, where the scorecard tells me about those pieces. I only see the piece in month 13 coming back to the company. So physically going there and counting the pieces that are being returned was just a complete waste of time. Again, scorecard provides that data. It's up to you to show the value and to implement. You're already using your pre-sort software with a built-in NCOA. Why not offer that NCOA to the client and clean their database every 30 days? Don't forget, that database is their lifeblood. They can do data appending, they can do electronic communications. It all starts with an accurate name and address in order to do data appends. That's the end of my rant. Any questions? Michael, anything to add? Leo, any questions coming in?
The only thing I would add, Tom, is if you're a e-doc submitter or a mail owner, once you've learned how to use the scorecard, to save yourself some time, all the scorecard reports, anything you can drill down to in the scorecard can be set up to be emailed to you every morning. So you're saving time and steps getting to the reports you need by just having them in your email. So once you learn how to use the scorecard and you've taught your customer how to use the scorecard, set it up so you get those email reports and save yourself a little time and headache on the back end.
So, Michael, I hate to do this to you publicly, but is that something you could write up an outline that we can get Leo to share with the audience?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we already have instructions on how to set the email up. I'll get that to Leo.
Great. Thank you, Michael.
And along that line, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that in addition to offering the information you're getting on today's webinar, we Mailers Hub do have more individualized help available if anybody wants it, either a phone call or some consultation to figure out how to train your staff or something else. And we offer a scorecard monitoring service for people who don't want to hire staff or train staff on their own. But I think either way, however you do it, it's very important, as Tom has been saying, that the tool be the mail preparer, whether you're a printer or a mailer, that you take advantage of this tool and use it to ensure that whatever you're producing is of high quality. It is a quality control tool, ultimately, and if everybody understands how to use it, it is something which is very helpful and helps you avoid the penalties that might be in the future for companies who don't use the scorecard effectively. Tom?
That's it. Good job, Leo.
Okay, well, thank you. Just to make everybody aware, again, there's a presentation available on the the screen there. You can download that for yourselves to look at later. The recording will be available later today, and a link will be provided to folks for that. Otherwise, again, we have these services available to you. And another shameless plug, we are offering, we have a little summer sale right now for folks who want to subscribe to our service or take advantage of our training opportunities or other things, because those two are right now economically advantageous, shall we say, if anybody wants to pursue that further. So we'd be happy to have you in the family. Again, thank you again for calling in today. Thank you, Michelle, for helping out, making sure the slides move. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Michael. For all the rest of you, we hope to see you in another month for our next webinar. Thanks again. Stay safe, stay cool, stay healthy. Bye.